everyone, and welcome to another session of Building Blocks. I'm Judy Brown from the Little Fabric Garden. Today I've got a special little project. It's not a quilt per se, it's like finishing up something. And it is putting on the binding. Now, you know, like probably know how to put on the binding, and it's kind of a boring little thing to do at the end. And by the time you get to that point, you just want to hurry up and get that binding done. And and it's kind of dull. You know, sometimes you can make it, put your binding fabric and get something jazzy and put it on there and it brightens it all up. But most times you just either use the fabric that you use for your outside border, or you get something that goes with one of the fabrics that's in the quilt. So today I'm going to show you how to do faux piping binding. Now try and say that 5 times in a row, and you will definitely be spitting all over the table. But anyway, and this is what it looks like. It's like a fake piping that you put, and it's part of the binding. It's not 2 separate pieces, it's part of the binding. Well, I guess it is 2 separate pieces. I'll show you that in a second. But anyway, when I first started quilting, I had seen something very similar to this, but it was 2 separate pieces that went on the quilt. They put fabric and they folded it and put it around the edge, and they sewed that down, and then they went back and they put the binding on. Well, some very, very smart person, and it wasn't me, believe me, they decided that there has to be a way to do that that's a lot easier than doing this. And so they came up with this faux piping binding. All right, so you can see what it looks like. It kind of jazzes up your outside border and your binding. Here's the one on this pinwheel, and then, I don't know if you remember this, but I think I showed this one other time, and here it is on this table runner. And the reason I put it on the table runner was because it was black, a lot of black in here, and I wanted to kind of break it up a little bit, and so I put that in, and it was just the right touch. So I really do like to do it. I don't do it very often, but I really like the outcome, and I'm hoping that you will too. And it's not hard to do, believe me. So what you're going to do is you're going to cut your fabric strips for your binding. You will cut strips that you want for your piping. So for the orange here, you are going to make that 2-inch strips. And so you'll figure out what you need for your binding, and that's how many strips you will cut. And this piece is 2 inches. And then the skinnier piece, which is this outside piece, you will cut it 1.5. All right, so you have 2-inch strips, 1.5-inch strips, and what we have to do is we have to sew them together. All right, so I am going to put them together, if I can find the ends here. And I figured out how much I needed to do this little piece, and this is what we are going to be putting it on. And after I get these sewed together, I'm going to trim this off. I already did a little bit of, like I did some quilting to kind of hold it together so that we could do this project. And it's not very big. I thought it would be a good thing to do, and I just, went diagonal, and you can see that I've got the top, the batting, and the backing are here. Okay, so back to this. Let's get these guys sewed together, and they're going to go right sides together, and you are going to sew them at 1/4-inch seam allowance. So I think I'm going to do it this way so I can make sure I don't mess up. Okay. It's going to take a little bit to get through this because I think there's 3 strips. Each color has 3 strips. So at 44 inches, it makes kind of a long strip. All right, so here you can see that I sewed the two strips together, and we've got the light and we've got the dark, and you can see that now this is probably like 1 3/4 now, and then this is probably 1 1/4. So we should have about 3 inches, which is going to be very important to me when I go to sew it on. I do have to remember that, because if I don't, and I didn't one time and I really messed it up. But anyway, I am going to go over and I am going to press this. And when you press it, you're going to press it to the light. And I usually press from the front, and I'm going to press it up toward the light fabric. And then after I do that all the way across, then I'm going to fold it in half. And when you fold it in half, because the light there was more, it was wider, you can see the piping here at the top. All right, so I'm going to go over there and get this pressed, and I'll be back in a minute and show you what's going on. Okay, so as you can see, I have these sewed together, and then I pressed it, and then I folded it in half, and now you can see the piping. This is what's going to be the piping, and it will be sewn on here in just a minute. All right, so when I did this, I didn't trim it off, because I just kind of wanted you to see that when I did it, I made sure that the batting and the backing were, a couple of inches, 1.5 inches or whatever, larger than the piece itself. And this was part of a panel, and I had it around for a while, and I thought this might be a good one to do, just because it's not too big, and it wouldn't take a whole lot of time to show you. So I'm going to trim around this, get rid of all of this excess. I'm going to do this 2 sides first. Not that that makes any difference, but okay. Get these. So this, could be used as like just to put on your table during the winter time. Just a little something to give it a little pizzazz. All right, so I have it all cut. It's right. It's trimmed up. And now we are going to put this on. I'm going to flip it over to the back, because we're going to sew it on the back, and then we will flip the binding to the front. And when we do this, we are going to start like this. You leave a good sized tail, because you have to put it together at the end. And I'm going to put it like this, and you're going to be able to see the piping fabric. The darker fabric or the not piping fabric is going to be hidden. It's going to be face down. So I'm going to put a little pin here, and then we will get started. I did change the foot on my sewing machine, and I put the walking foot. Now, a walking foot is supposed to help keep the layers moving, so that things don't get folded over, like you end up with too much fabric. And but no matter what, it seems that you still have a little bit of a problem there. But I do put the walking foot on it. It just makes it easier, a little bit easier. All right, so here we go. Come on over here. And when I'm doing this, when I'm coming to a corner, I always put a little pin about 1/4 inch from the edge, and then I stop there, because then I have to turn the fabric, the binding, but I want to make sure that I stop about 1/4 inch away. And it's it's not perfect. It's not I just kind of eyeball it. So I'm going to stick a little pin here, and so when I'm sewing, I come down here, I'm going to stop right there and then turn it. All right, let's see how this is going to go. Hope it works. Okay, and I am not going to back stitch or anything. I am just going to sew, because sometimes when I'm done and I leave my space, I need maybe a little bit bigger space in between. So if I've back tacked it, I've got to rip it out, and it's harder to rip if I just, if I do that. So I usually don't back stitch it when I get going. All right, let's see, here we go. And I probably could go a little faster, but usually when I go faster, I do something silly. And now I am going to back stitch here at the end. All right, and now I'm going to take this off. I'm going to snip it, and then I bring it up like this, fold it back over like that, and I will put my pin in to hold it in place. And then we go to the next corner. Get that under there. And I back stitch this also. The only one I don't back stitch is when I first get started and when I finish, because of that, maybe having to make it a little bit bigger. So I am going to back stitch here, and now I'm going up, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to put a pin down here about 1/4 of an inch to remind me to stop. I did this at our guild, kind of showed some of the girls. Some of them knew how to do it, and and maybe some of you have done it also. But a couple of the girls had never done it before, and so when we had our following meeting, they brought a service quilt that they were giving, and they had done it. They had tried it, and it worked out really well, and everybody was like, oh yeah. So it made me feel good too that somebody tried it. Okay, so got to that one. Snip, turn, fold back, stick a pin. Get down the side here. And I know I probably should be pinning or clipping or, but I never do it because I just keep sewing along, and all of a sudden I usually hit one of those clips, and so I've just decided that I'm going to take my chances not pinning it. I probably could go faster if I pinned it. Alright, so I'm getting close to the next corner. So I'm going to stick another pin in here. pin, I'm gonna back stitch it, take it off, snip, turn, we're getting there. Fold it up, fold it back, put the pin in. Okay. So it'll be kind of nice when I get done, and I can show you how I hook the binding together too. This side is a short side, so I'm going to get the pin in right now. Okay. So now we're on the last side, and I'm going to leave a big space, probably bigger than I should, but I'm going to stop right about here. So I'm just going to turn the corner, and I am going to end it right there. But I am going to put a pin here to remind me to stop. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to flip it up. Flip it back and put the pin in. Okay. Well, there we go. Back stitch. Almost there. All right, so I made it to the pin, and I'm going to trim this off. Get rid of that, and I'm going to go back and trim all of these. Get the pins out, and then I will show you how I connect it. And then I'll flip it, and you will see how it turned out. Okay. So here we have our two pieces. Now this one's really long. I made sure that I had plenty. I was afraid that I didn't want it to be too short. So it's better to cut some and have some extra than not to have enough. So that's what I did. All right, so how I do this binding, how I connect it. Some friends of mine, they're really good quilters. When I first started, she showed me how to do it, and she said this is how she does it, and she has had much success with it, and so have I. It took me a while to get it in my brain, but you know, I finally did. So I'm just bringing this in. It doesn't make any difference how far, and I'm going to put that there. And then this one is going to come, and I'm going to meet the folds. It's like they're kissing, and that's what she had said. Just bring them together so they're kissing. We are going to now cut this side. We're going to just snip it right there at the fold. All right, so here we have them kissing, and now, and this is scary. It's always very scary for me to do this because it's like, oh, this isn't right. Oh my gosh, what am I going to do? All right, so on this fold, I'm just going to stick my scissors in there, and I'm just going to snip it right there. And then this is going over in a pile. Now, I don't know if you remember or not, but when I sewed these together, I said that this ends up being about 3 inches now. After you have your 1/4 inch on either side, this ends up being about 3 inches. And that's really important to me on how I do my binding, because from this fold, I have to measure back 3 inches. Whatever the width is of this binding, I have to measure back that amount. So if your binding was 2.5 inches, you'd measure 2.5 inches back. But mine, because there's 2 of them together, it's 3. So I am going to measure 3 inches back from that fold, and I'm going to put a little line like that, and I'm going to cut on that line. All right. So put that in a pile. So now I have to open this up, and this is a tricky part. And see, I think I need more space, so I am going to trim this back a little bit just to give me a little bit more space to work with. All right, take it back. Let's see how that works. Okay, so I'm going to open this up. Hope this is going to be a little bit better. All right, open that up like that, and then this one's going to get opened up also, this side. But when I open this one up, I have to flip it this way. So it's coming up over, and it goes like this. It goes at an angle, 45 degree, 90 degree, I can't remember my degrees. But anyway, it goes like this. And I don't know if you can see it real well, but it's like that. And so now I am going to draw a line from the bottom left to the upper right edge. Let's see if I can do this. Make sure, okay, that's that, there's that. And do this. Grab a couple of pins. Usually I end up pinning the whole thing together, and then I have to, okay, see if I can get through both of those. All right, get it like that. Get this one down. And if you're working with a bigger quilt and you have a bigger space, it doesn't, you know, it's not so hard to do this, but when you have a smaller area, it's hard to get, you know, get it at that angle. So now I'm going to take it back to the sewing machine, and I'm going to sew on that line that I drew, that diagonal line. You don't want to sew them together. All right, let's see. I hope this works. Okay, let's keep going. So, got that done. Get this off. Snip this. And snip this. And my strings are all over the place. And now I'm going to cut, I'm going to trim this at 1/4 inch from that sew line. And usually I do that with a pair of scissors. I see it was a little crooked here, but I don't think it's going to make too much difference. But I'm going to just cut this. And so when you fold it back, you can see that it fits perfectly. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take this over and I'm going to press this down to make it lay flat. And then I will come back and I will sew this shut. So give me a second and I will be right back. All right, so I did press that down and I brought it back over to the machine. I'm going to sew this opening closed, and I am going to back stitch this now. Just do a couple. So when I get done with this, I'll take it over to the ironing board here, and what I like to do is to press it from the back and then fold it over. It just makes it easier, and I can see that I'm going to get like a little fold here, but I'm not going to worry about it. All right, and I go back, take that off. So, okay. All right, so it's all tacked down, and of course it's on the back. So I am going to push this around like this, and now I'm going to press this, and it makes it easier. I don't know if this is what you're supposed to do, but you see how this has come together here? I do it because it makes it easier when I flip it. So I just fold those, and I press this down. And you know, there's different ways to put your binding together at the end, and this was the one that worked best for me. So that's why I use it. You don't have to do that, you know, like if you're doing this procedure, this technique, you don't have to do it the way I did it. You could do it the way you usually do yours, but this is just the technique that I use because it's easier for me. All right, so now I'm flipping this over to the front, and this is where I fold it. I get the miter corner, and then I fold this down over top. And do the same on this side. So far so good, they're matching up, yippee. Now some people that do this, they will make this piece, instead of cutting it at 2 inches, they'll cut it at 1 3/4, and that makes this piece, your faux piping, narrow. It makes it smaller, and I like it just a little bit wider. That's why I do it at the 2 inches, but you can do it at the, you know, cut your strip 1 3/4, and that piece will just be smaller. It'll be, you know, thinner. All right, last side to press, and then I will take it back to the machine. Okay, so I've got them all pressed, and it's just, it makes it easier to hold on to it as we're doing this next step, which is going to be stitching in the ditch. We are going to go right into that seam and stitch all the way around. Some of these fabrics are really fraying, which I don't really like, because I don't like those strings sticking out, but I can go back and do that. All right, so I'm going to take it over, and I put in my top stitch is kind of like a turquoise, which is kind of like that. And usually when I sew my things together, I just use like a beige or whatever, but I did use that because I knew I was going to be using it for this piping. So, all right, I'm going to put that in there, and I'm going to keep my walking foot on just because there's a bunch of layers here. I am going to back stitch this to see if I can catch that diagonal fabric, and we will see what happens here. All right, so now I'm going to try and stay in the ditch. And we're just going to go all the way around and then finish up. Okay, and so here you can see, went all the way around, and I stitched in the ditch all the way around, and here's the piping. You can see the piping, it kind of sticks out, gives it a like a three-dimension look to it, and gives it a little pizzazz. I just kind of like the look of it, and like I told you, if you would like to have this thinner, you would just make that one piece, the lighter one or the one that you want the piping, you would make it at 1 3/4 instead of 2 inches. So that's our project for today. I hope you enjoyed it. And don't forget, you can get the patterns through the library or online or here at the store. So happy sewing.